All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the swag. C Wells coming at you, and we're gonna talk about the East Division today. Our way too early East Division predictions. Like I said, this is just like a rough draft of how things may look um, when we get closer to media day and in the fall camp. These are just my first attempts at figuring these things out. So, like I said, this is always going to be something that changes all the time. But for now, this is going to be what I'm rocking with. We're gonna go from number 6 to number 1. So y'all keep it locked here. Make sure y'all hit those socials: Facebook is Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. Also, don't forget to like the video, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. So, like I said, we're gonna jump right into this, man. We're not gonna waste any time with this. We're gonna start off with our number our number 6 team, and that is the Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils. Um, this team went 1-10, 1-10 last year, 1-7 in conference. I really had a rough go of things. You know, they just really under Coach Wade in his first year, they really couldn't put a lot together. I thought they did some nice things in the off season leading up to this, but they just really couldn't really get things going on the field. Valley plays a tough schedule early, and it makes it really tough for them to kind of figure some things out. So they just, they really didn't really have much going. They were able to beat Pine Bluff last season, but that was it for their victories. So we'll see, where they stack up. But the reason why I had this team at the number 6 spot is because, like I said, they have a lot to do. They have a lot of work to do. They are a team who is always gonna seem to be one of those teams that just never really gets where you think they will. Um, in the preseason, people always feel like Valley's gonna be the team to surprise people. Valley's gonna always be the team to, pull off a couple upsets. But when the season starts, it doesn't typically happen. But they play games fairly close. From time to time, they can be competitive, and I think they're hitting that way. I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get to a really competitive level in the division. But right now, I think they are kind of in a spot where they just don't really have the juice like they need. But they really, they couldn't really score the ball last season, scoring 12 points per game, which was last in the league. Defensively, they were 7th in the league in scoring offense, allowing 27 points per game. Their offense was last in total offense at 249 yards per game. The defense was 10th at 381 yards per game. They ran the ball for an average of 89 yards per game, which was dead last. Their rushing defense was 9th with 171 yards per game. Their passing game was 10th at 159 yards per game. Their passing defense was also 10th at 210 yards per game. Defensively, they were last in sacks with 12, and they allowed 43 sacks as an offense. So they struggled to protect the quarterback, and they really could not get to the quarterback. Those kind of things always play into how your team performs. They were 7th in third down defense at 36% and last in third down offense at 25%. So this team really has a lot of work to do. They lost some key guys off of their team. Tajarian Williams is a strong quarterback. I think he's a guy who's going to continue to grow and develop as he gets more experience. He was only a freshman last season and didn't have a bad season. Threw for about almost 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns. He did have 6 interceptions, but completed 61% of his passes. So that's a good step. But they really just need to kind of find some more guys around him. And like I said, they've been recruiting pretty well, in the portal and also in high school and JUCO. They're getting guys to come in, and they're getting guys to believe in what they're doing. It's ultimately going to start to be, can they win games? At some point, the rubber has to meet the road, and I think that time is starting. Their schedule is always tough. They open up with 4 straight non-conference games on the road at Tennessee State, at Lamar, at Murray State, and at Georgia State. And then they play Alcorn at home on September 28th to open up their home schedule. So 5 tough games right out the gate. You're looking probably at an 0-5 start before your bye week. So they have to find a win in that span somewhere to kind of make them have some momentum and some positivity. After that bye week, they go to Alabama State. They get Bethune-Cookman at home. They go to Pine Bluff. They get Prairie View at home. They go to Jackson State and FAMU, and then they go to Alabama A&M. So 7 straight games after your bye week. Your most toughest games are away from home, so that takes that element of playing at Valley out of the window. And so there's not a lot to be expected this season, which is kind of tough. But they who knows what can happen when the season starts. But right now they are firmly my number 6 team. Looking at my number 5 team, I kind of juggled whether I should put this team at 4 or 5, and then I did some more looking and felt like this team probably would be the 5 team. Not necessarily because they're closer to the number 6 spot, but I think they're kind of even with the number 4 team. So it's kind of like put one there and one the other place, and that's Bethune-Cookman. This team finished 3-8 last season, 2-6 in conference. Had a lot of close losses. A lot of games decided by 2 touchdowns or less. Their defense was pretty solid last season, which was one of the more underrated units. Not great necessarily numerically, but they made some plays all over. Offense just really couldn't match their energy. The offense ended up averaging 18.5 points per game on the season. Defensively, they averaged 26 points per game. Offensively, they were 11th in total offense with 260 yards per game. Defensively, they were 8th at 377 yards per game. Their running game was at 125.5 yards per game, which was 9th. Their defense was 8th in rushing defense at 168 yards per game. Their passing attack was last at 134 yards per game. Only 9 touchdowns on the season. One of 3 teams that finished with single-digit touchdown passes on the season. And defensively, they were 9th against the pass at 209 yards per game. They registered 22 sacks as a defense, which was 8th, and they allowed 33 sacks as an offense, which was 9th. When you look at third downs, they were 10th in third down offense at 31.1%, and they were 3rd in third down defense at 33%. So their defense, like I said, they weren't great, but they were a lot better than they probably were expected to be. And offensively, they just didn't have any explosiveness. I think that was the biggest issue with this offense, is that this offense was just not explosive. The longest pass play on the season was 43 yards. The longest run play was 58. And that 58-yarder came from a receiver. So the running backs didn't even really register a lot of big runs. I think their 52 yards was the longest run by a running back on the season. So, that's not a lot of explosive plays for the run game. And when your longest pass play is less than 50 yards, that shows your offense is not capable of stretching defenses, and you're never really consistently taking the top off of a defense. And a lot of that is the fact that you just didn't have a consistent quarterback because of injuries. You played like 4 quarterbacks due to injuries, different portions of the season. They had some guys at the receiver position that could make plays, but I just don't think the offense wasn't able to generate those kind of explosive plays. But defensively, I thought they played well. The depth, I think, is what wore them down. And this season, they hit the portal heavy. A lot of FBS guys on both sides of the ball. So they are really trying to add guys, and make some things happen. Raymond Woody III, the son of Coach Woody, he is a guy that's going to probably be a leader on that defense. And so, he's an older guy. He's been around a while. He's played a lot of places. So, you know, he can kind of help be a coach on the field if they can get that out of him. So I think defensively they're going to continue to get better. I think they lost some key guys off the defense, but I think that they have the ability to maintain at least where they were last season. Offensively, they're going to have to find playmakers, and that's why I feel like they're the number 5 team as opposed to 4. And when you look at their schedule, they have two FBS games at USF to open the season and at Western Michigan on September 14th. They get Mercer at home, which is a strong non-conference game. Clark Atlanta rounds out the non-conference slate on September 21st. And then they get Alabama State at home on September 28th. So they have 3 out of their first 5 games at home. Then they get a bye week. And then they go to Alabama A&M and Valley back-to-back weeks. They get Jackson and Grambling at home. Then they get Southern and Texas Southern on the road. And then they get Florida A&M and Orlando. So the later portion of the season, they're going to be away from home a lot. You're looking at 4 true road games on the road and a neutral site game. And then you get Jackson State and Grambling, 2 tough games at home. So there's not a lot of wiggle room on the schedule. If you want to make a move in the conference, you're going to have to definitely beat Alabama A&M and Valley. Texas Southern's another one that you're going to really have to get. That gives you, if you get those, that gives you 3 wins. You beat 2 of those 3 teams last season, and you almost beat the other one. So those are not impossible games for them. If they can steal a game against Grambling or Southern, I think that puts them in a decent spot. Beating Jackson State, Alabama A&M, beating Jackson State, Alabama State, and FAMU are going to be things that they have to work toward. Those are the 3 top teams, in my opinion, in the division, and they're going to have to find a way to get past at least one of those if they want to really improve their standing. But right now, I think they're a firm 5. Could be 4, depending on what day of the week I look at it. But right now, I think they're the 5 team on the standings. Number 4 is Alabama A&M Bulldogs. This team had a very good offense last season. Second in the league in scoring at almost 30 points a game, 29.6. Defensively, they were 8th in scoring defense at 27.4. Total offense, they were 3rd at 374.6 yards per game. They scored 41 touchdowns, which was only second to FAMU, who had 46. So their offense was very good. Averaged 5.5 yards per play. Very good offense. Defensively, they were 6th in total defense, 346 yards per game. Rushing offense, they were 5th at 153 yards per game. Rushing defense, they were 6th at 142 yards per game. Passing offense, they were 3rd at 221 yards per game. In the passing defense, they were 8th at 204 yards per game. One of the issues with this offense was turnovers. They had 13 interceptions and fumbled the ball 11 times, so they had 24 turnovers, but they did have 26 takeaways as a defense. So, they came out on top, but you can't turn the ball over that much as an offense and win games. They did a pretty good job protecting the quarterback. They allowed 21 sacks. They registered 25 as a defense. That was 5th and 6th, respectively. Third down offense, they led the league at 40.7% on third down, and defensively they were 6th at 35.8% on third down. So, and when you look at the numbers, this team wasn't that bad. Like I said, they had a very high-ranking offense, and the defense was, pretty much mid-pack. But that, they finished 5-6 and 3-5 in conference, and that's just, one of those things that, you can't really have that happen to you. When you play like that and you don't win games, that puts your coach in a bad position. And just, when you think about coming into last season, some people were already talking about Coach Maynor being on the hot seat, and they came up short. So that means this season he's definitely, he's on the hot seat to a lot of people now. So they really need to get some wins. Because they cannot afford to have the kind of season that they had last season. They need, they had some injuries. Langford was banged up at some point. Eaglin was banged up at some point. But they have to be able to win these games. When you look at this, at what they did last year, they lost to Southern by 10. They beat Pine Bluff by 7. They lost to Jackson State by 15 in a game that they trailed big all game. They did beat Grambling by 21. They lost to Bama State by 15. They lost to FAMU by 14 in a game that they really led at a good stretch. They lost to Bethune-Cookman by 17, and they beat Valley by 9. So they were just all over, just didn't know what kind of team he was going to get week to week. And they have to find that consistency this season because, if they want to take a step, they need to be more consistent. They need to take care of the ball. I think they have one of the better offenses returning if they can, stay healthy and be consistent. You have Eaglin and Morrow at the running back position. You have Hambrick, Hewitt, and now they added Duke Miller at wide receiver. Langford is a dual threat guy at quarterback, so they have the potential there to be a good offense. Defensively, like I said, they are doing what they need to do. Not great. They're gonna miss Zarion Hayes at defensive end, but they were a team who had a lot of takeaways, so they can continue to get better. They may challenge for that third spot, but it's gonna take consistency. And when you look at their schedule, they have two non D1 games, both at home. One against Kentucky State and one against Georgetown, Kentucky. Those games are sandwiched by a road trip to Auburn and a road trip to Austin Peay. If you can pull off the Austin Peay game, you're 3-1 after your first 4 games. You open up conference play at FAMU and against Jackson State and Mobile. So you're jumping into the fire immediately in conference play. And then on October 12th, you're playing a Bethune-Cookman team that beat you last season. So you're really playing 3 teams that beat you in conference play already before your bye week. And after that, you get Bama State who beat you. So you have 4 division games in your first 4 games. And, if you want to make any kind of headway, you need to find a way to go 2-2 at minimum in those 4 games. I think the Magic City Classic is going to tell the tale for this season. If they play well and lose, you might not have that big of an issue, although people are still going to be upset. But if you're not playing well and you lose that game, then I think the eyes are fully going to be focused on Coach Maynard. I don't know how long he'll make it after that game if he loses it and they're not playing well. But I think that is the issue for them. After that, they get Southern at home, they go to Pine Bluff, they get Grambling at home, and they close out at Valley. So none of those games, are easy. Pine Bluff gave them a battle last season. They did beat Grambling in Grambling, but Grambling looks to be improved this season. Valley is always tough in Ida Bena, and Southern right now we don't even know. Southern could be good or average. So I think that could be a game that could swing their season if they come out of the Magic City Classic with a win. If they come out of the game with a loss, then that Southern game is definitely going to be interesting, momentum-wise and mentality-wise. But we're going to move on to our number 3. Our number 3 team, and this video has been an adventure. I recorded it already just for transparency, and the audio did not work. And now I'm recording the second time, and now my phone died. I'm gonna make it through this, man. We're gonna get here. But our next team is our number 3 team, and like I said, depending on who you ask, this team could be the team to beat in the East, or they could be second. But I picked them 3rd, and that's Alabama State. And I'm gonna like I said, getting the addition of Andrew Body really changed the trajectory and the expectations of the team. Getting a quarterback like that can definitely increase the attention and increase the possibility of winning, because this was a team who won 7 games in conference. Won 7 games overall and 5 in conference, with an offense that averaged 20.6 points per game. Defensively, they were spectacular at 14.5 points per game. And they total offense, they were at
ninth at 299 yards per game. Defensively, they were second at 281 yards per game. And their rushing offense, they ranked sixth. They ranked 11th at 111 yards per game. Rushing defense, they were second at 100 yards per game. Their passing offense was seventh at 188 yards per game. And defensively, they were third against the pass at 181 yards per game. Offensively, they allowed 15 sacks. So they did a really good job of protecting the quarterback, even though the offense really wasn't that spectacular. And defensively, they registered 25 sacks, and the defense just didn't really allow much. They were second in the league in third down defense at 30.2%, and they were eighth in the league on third down offense at 32%. Losing Keyshawn Johnson changes a lot in this offense, but having guys who can still make some things happen. Tyree Saunders is a guy who played well last season. Um, they added a lot of guys through the portal. The running game, should improve with some additions as well. Marcus Harris, I believe he's returning as well. Um, Andrew Body really changes things with this offense. He can beat you with his legs or his arm. They have to develop their chemistry with the offense as a whole, and I think that's going to take some time. I think that this, I think third is a good spot for them. I know a lot of people are going to put them at first right out the gate, and I'm not sure if that's where they should be. I think they still have some things to work on. They lost some big guys over their defense. They're returning some key guys on defense as well, but I just think that this is a team who didn't, they overachieved on one side of the ball and underachieved on the other, and it kind of evened out. I think that the defense is not going to be as great as it was, but I think the offense will be better. Um, and they do have one big thing working in their advantage, and that's on their schedule. Um, they get FAMU and Jackson State at home, so if they're gonna make a move, it's in those two games. Um, they open up in Miami against North Carolina Central in the Orange Blossom Classic. Big game. I think Central's not going to be what they have been in previous years. So if you can catch them early, that's great. I think there's going to be some questions because you have a whole lot of new guys and you have a new quarterback on your team. So there's going to be some up and down marks there. But I think that they have the ability to make it happen. Uh, they get Miles at home, which is never an easy game. Miles always comes to play, and they get Samford at home. I mean, they go to Samford, and then they get a bye week, and then they play Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M in back-to-back weeks. Like I said, they get Florida A&M at home, they get Valley at home, they get the bye week before the Magic City Classic, and then they play Alabama A&M, which is going to be a big game as usual. A&M is going to be fighting for their lives. Um, how they come into this game could impact this entire rest of the season for both teams. Coming off of Alabama A&M, they get Alcorn and Mobile, and they close out at Grambling, and then they get their last three games at home versus Jackson State, Prairie View, and Tuskegee. So their schedule it shapes up very well. They only have two games, well, they only have three games out of 12 outside of the state of Alabama. That sets up well for them. If the offense can come together, then I think that's a great look. If the defense maintains, their ability, that's a great look. Um, I just don't want to put a lot on them early because I think they have to kind of get to that point. If they can get to that point, then I think they'll be in good shape. I think it's sometimes it might be too much too fast. And that's why I think third place is a great spot for them to kind of come up. And that takes us to our number two team. And I went back and forth on this one because number two and number one, they both have some questions. Um, some questions are bigger than others for each team. But I picked Jackson State at two. I could easily be swayed to putting them at one, but because I think offensively, I think the offense is going to be really good. I think the defense is going to be solid, but they lost some really important guys off of defense. And I'm not saying they can't replace them, but I'm just saying, having an offense that I know is going to be good is definitely a key factor for this team. The running game is going to be great as long as Irv Mulligan is healthy. J.D. Martin returns. You return like four of your top rushers. Um, also, Jacobian Morgan is a key factor. And one thing that doesn't mean anything, but it's just funny to me. Um, their top six rushers, all their last names start with M. So the M boys are gonna get it done in a state that starts with M. I just thought that was funny. It's nothing. It's nothing major. Uh, and Fabian McCray, another M, is their top receiver that's returning. So their offense is gonna be good. TC Taylor, I think he's calling plays this year, so he's experienced at that. Doing both is always going to be an interesting thing, but I think defensively they'll come around. I think it might take them a minute, but I think they'll get there. This is a team that led the league they led the league in total offense at 389 yards per game. Their defense was fourth at 335 per game. They scored 27.3 points per game on offense while giving up 23.9 on defense. Their rushing attack was third with 161 yards per game, and their defense was seventh at 148 yards per game in the run game. They were second in passing offense at 227 yards per game, 21 touchdowns, which were the second most in the league, and only four interceptions. Took care of the ball extremely well. They also had 17 interceptions as a defense to lead the league, 187.4 yards per game allowed through the air. The offensive line kind of struggled a bit, allowing 27 sacks, and defensively they had 29, which is definitely good. That was third in the league. And third down offense, they finished the season at third at 38.7%, and third down defense, they were fourth at 33.6%. So when you look at this team, they could definitely challenge for the number one spot, and I don't have any problem with putting them there. Um, so I always just look at it sometimes as like the champ has to be dethroned, and as long as the champ has life in their body, then I think they can be justified being put in that spot. And right now, I think that's where FAMU is. Right now, JSU opens up their season on August 29th, which is a Thursday at ULM. Um, they get Lane at home, Southern at home. They get Grambling on the road and at Texas Southern, and against Alabama A&M in Mobile. So the early portion of the season is very manageable. The ULM game, ULM is not a good team, so I think they'll be able to compete in that game. You get Lane at home, you get Southern, who is going to be going through some things early. Grambling, same thing. Even though it's in the hole, Grambling is going to be going through some things. Texas Southern has a new coach, so those are three games right there that you could win and be in a really good spot. The only downside is Southern and Grambling are non-conference games. So, you win them, that's great because you always want to beat Grambling and Southern anyway if you're Jackson State. Um, Having those as SWAC wins is icing on the cake, but, you take those wins anyway. Alabama A&M was a team who can be beaten. You beat them already last year, so, it's nothing really treacherous, but it's a different year, so you just never know. But the early portion of the schedule, it shapes up well for them. Um, because after their bye week, they get FAMU. So everything builds up to that FAMU game. They come out of those first six games at 4-2, 5-1, 6-0 with an upset of ULM. This team is going to be in very good shape in the division because after you play FAMU, you run off three straight games against teams that you'll be favored against. And that's Bethune-Cookman, Pine Bluff, and Valley. Two of those three are at home. You close out at Alabama State and at Alcorn. So the ending is gonna be where you'll find out exactly where you are, because you're playing a team who I picked to win the West and a team who is gonna be a factor in the East in your last two games. So if you start off fast, then that can carry you through those last two games. And that's why I feel like that early portion of the season is very important to Jackson State. And if they can come out of that well, then the rest of the season will go well for them as well. And that takes us to our final team on the list, and that is our defending SWAC East champs and defending SWAC champs as a whole, and our Celebration Bowl champs, the Florida A&M Rattlers. They lost Willie Simmons, which is a huge drop, losing your head coach. Um, I'm interested to see what Coach Colsey can do. I think they have a great defense returning. They did lose some guys off of that defense, but they still will be a great defense, and I think the defense is going to carry them early. The running game should be solid. I think Daniel Richardson is going to be the quarterback. I think he's going to pull it out. Um, although I do think Junior Maritovic is going to push him, but I think Richardson's going to be the guy. And their offense, losing guys like Jamari Shareed and Marcus Riley definitely hurts your offense. Kamari Young, those are guys that, really made the offense go. But I think they have new guys coming in that can fill those roles. I'm just gonna take a minute for them to gel. And if that means if you're gonna get this team, then you probably have to get them early, while they're finding their footing. They led the league in scoring offense at 30.6 points per game. They were second in scoring defense at 15.2 points per game. They were fourth in total offense at 374 yards per game. They had 46 touchdowns on the season, which led the league. Defensively, they had 261 yards per game, which led the conference. Their rushing attack was a lot better this past season. They ran the ball for 138 yards per game, 24 touchdowns, which also led the conference. Averaged 4.3 yards per carry. Really solid running attack. They led the league in rushing defense at 95.4 yards per game. They led the league in passing offense at 236 yards per game. They did have 11 interceptions. That was one of the only issues this team had last season. They led the league in passing offense at 165 yards per game. They had 17 interceptions, which was tied with Jackson State for the lead in the conference. They had 16 sacks allowed as an offensive line. Did a great job protecting the quarterback, and they led the league in sacks as a defense with 37. That Dark Cloud defense did a really good job of getting pressure on the quarterback, and they made life heck for everybody. Uh, second and third down conversion rate at 39.5 on offense, and first on defense at 27.9%. So they always extended drives and they always stop drives. And you do that, you'll find yourself winning games. And like I said, I think with some of the holes that they have, I think they have some spots to fill, but I still think that they are in a good spot. They probably won't have the record that they had the last couple of years. They may lose a game or two in conference play, but I still think that once the dust settles, they'll be right there in the mix. Um, I can't forecast them going nowhere in terms of down until I see that. They open up with Norfolk State in Atlanta in the MEAC Challenge. Then they get South Carolina State at home on August 31st before they go to Miami. They go to Troy. So they have two FCS games, two FBS games. You split those two, you come into it 2-2. You get Alabama A&M at home. You go to Bama State, which is a big game. You get a bye week, and then Jackson State. So October 5th and 19th are really the biggest games of the season for FAMU. Those two games are going to determine the division. You win them both, you're probably winning. You win them both, you may go undefeated because I don't know if anybody else in the conference is going to beat you. If you win those two games, you split them, you're still in a good spot. If you lose them both, then I think that's where the question comes. You get Southern after you play Jackson State, and you get Texas Southern at home. You close out at Prairie View, and then at home against Valley, and then against Bethune-Cookman in Orlando. So the schedule shapes up. Like I said, October 5th and 19th are the games to look out for if you're looking at FAMU's schedule. South Carolina State, under with Coach Chennis Berry, should be a very entertaining first game for them. It'll be FAMU's second game, but that should be an entertaining game in Bragg. But they haven't lost at home in a long time, so every time they step on that field in Bragg this season, that that streak should be on the line until it's snapped. So they should be in in pretty good shape there. Everything shapes up for them. They, like I said, they play 2 FCS games. Neither one of them are really, really hard. So you should be able to win them. You play a FBS game, then you have a bye week, then another FBS game before you jump into swag play. So they have some opportunities to find their footing, and if they can do that, then I think they'll ultimately win the division and make it back to the swag championship. I don't think they're head and shoulders above everybody else though, like they were last season. So there's still, there's still that optimism for everybody else, and that's what made it a little bit tougher to predict this time because I think that everybody has their opportunities to make some things happen. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the swag Seawells, and I'm signing out, and I'm gonna catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.